It's customary at a funeral service to give a eulogy. And that's a strange word, eulogy. It's one that I've really never heard in any other context than at a memorial service. We use it infrequently, but really it's for the living and for those who have passed on. But I think it's just come to mean something we only use at a funeral service. It finds its origins in classical Greek, and it means true words. And the English word has come to mean high praise. Knowing that, some of the funerals I've preached have been very trying. Either because I don't know the person very well, or maybe because I know him or her too well. Either way, it's not difficult to eulogize my mother. I've heard it said about a woman like my mom, for those who did not know her, no words are adequate to describe her life. For those who did know her, no words are necessary. Correct. I feel that way today. We're here to commemorate the life of a woman who really needs no eulogy. When someone lives such a godly life as did my mom, there's really nothing we can add. Her eulogy comes naturally and spontaneously from what she said, who she was, and everything that she did for other people. Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 gives the picture of what the writer of this proverb says is an ideal woman. I'm not going to read all of those verses. There's 21 of them. But let me tell you, the writer of Proverbs describes the ideal woman as trustworthy, industrious, compassionate, and wise. Her value is far beyond rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her. She brings him good. She works well into the night. Her husband is respected mainly because of who she is. She's clothed in strength and dignity. She's never idle. And there's so many things we could add to that list when we are talking about Oneida Kimbrough. Verse 29 summarizes all of it when it said that many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Now, some of you don't know or have never even heard this passage of Scripture probably. But you'll never forget it after today when you think of my mom. Her praise, her eulogy comes from the family that she loved, the friends that she had, the work that she did, and the God that she serves. So let me talk about those four things for just a minute. The family that she loved. Now, I could talk a long time about this. The funeral director wanted a ballpark time of how long a funeral would be today. And I said, that depends on the Holy Spirit. Amen. And you being a pastor, I said, you just have to take it for that. I think that really frightened him. But one verse that I didn't read, and I saved it for this, is verse 28 of Proverbs 31. Her sons rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. Now, I've heard that verse before, but it never impacted me like it did when I read it just a couple days ago. Her sons rise up and call her blessed. Larry, Tom, Bob, I don't know of a greater description of our great love for our mom than what is found right here. That we rise up and call her blessed. We often refer to her as the Queen. In fact, every time she came home from the hospital, Larry would text us, "The eagle has landed." And we knew exactly what that meant. And that's just the way that we thought about her. And she earned it. Let me tell you, she earned it. It's a little bit difficult to talk about this without sounding like I'm boasting about me and Tom and Bob and Larry, or just me. But I'm not boasting. I don't have to brag, because she bragged on us enough. Just in conversation, she would find a way to bring us up. Every morning, she texted the 4 boys when she got up. She told us what she had done. I've eaten breakfast, I had a good night, or I had a bad night, didn't sleep. But she could even say I had a bad night in a positive way. She really could. And whatever she said, she ended it with, "Now I need an update from my 4 boys." And she had 4 hearts, red hearts. I didn't even notice for a while that it was just 4. It wasn't 3, it wasn't 5, it was 4 red hearts. I need an update from my boys. And you better believe we better answer. We better answer. And even if it's just, "I'm good, I'm working." She understood our unique personalities. We're all different. But in everything she did, she made us better. I don't remember ever feeling as if she loved one of us more than the other, or that she did more for one of us than the other. And there's no doubt that Larry, Bob, and Tom did more for her than I did. I lived 3.5 hours away, and they were here, and they were there at her home almost every day. But she made no difference in us. I think one of the things that she was most proud of, and I'll have to admit, me too, is the fact that we never, I'm using some absolutes because it's true, we never had any serious conflict. I mean, we were kids. We did get into some fights. Well, I didn't, because they were always all bigger, older than me. It's great to be able to learn from the mistakes of others. But as adults, 4 boys with varying personalities, to be together and agree on the things that matter, it's almost unheard of. Sometimes we agree too much. During the funeral planning, it's not that we couldn't make a decision, it's just that whatever you want. It's whatever you want. Sometimes it just went back and forth like that until one of us made some kind of a decision. It really astounded Nick, the funeral director. He just had him scratching his head. But she also had a special relationship with the girls we married. The girls. That's what she called them. She loved her daughter-in-laws like her own. She treated them like her own. I was supposed to be a girl. I did get a little bit of a complex about that, especially late on into my years when I kept hearing that I was supposed to be a girl. But she got her girls. She did, and she loved them very much. Verse 28 also says, her husband also praises her. And did he ever? For 57 years. And that's how long they were together, you understand. He passed away 14 years ago. But Dad knew he had a good thing. Several of us were talking a couple nights ago, sitting around the kitchen table, and we often heard them talk and discuss But we shared that we don't remember her ever raising her voice at him. I mean, I recall maybe a few times she raised her voice at Larry. I do know that, and I really don't remember much about it. They were older, but I do know that she cut my hair until I got a job and was able to go get my own haircut. And that's how ignorant kids can be. It's like I had a good thing and I couldn't wait to go get my own haircut. Because she did raise her voice occasionally. She did pop me in the cheeks a couple times. A couple times every time she cut my hair. But I really don't remember her ever being someone who was angry and raised her voice. She could speak up when she needed to, but she did so with humility and love. And I just know, because I was with her last week, God blessed me. I have not been to Poplar Bluff and stayed 8 straight days in, I don't know how many, 20, 30 years. But he just impressed upon me to come and sit with her in the rehab for several days. And she wouldn't even inconvenience the nurses. She would make sure that she didn't hear any bells for a little while, so that they weren't busy. And then she would ring her bell. She just didn't want to inconvenience anybody. Dad grew older and he mellowed some. He did, some. But I could see that his love for Mom grew. And I'm so thankful that they're together again. Her legacy extends to 12 grands, 19 great-grands, soon to be 21 great-grands, 4 great-great-grands. So how could I talk about them all? I really can't. A host of extended family who came from all over, some friends of mine who came from Conway. Her influence was far-reaching. She has one remaining sister. And I know, Peggy, that life will change drastically for you. You've spent the past, I don't know how many years I meant to ask you, with her probably more than any other single person. From 7 or 8 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, and some Saturdays. She adored you, as do we, for your tremendous care, and you were her angel. And I know life will be very painful for you, but God's grace for all of us is sufficient. I can't move on without talking about one more thing that was such a special thing, and I don't know when it originated, but Friday nights were family nights at her house. You know, we try to get family together, and it's difficult. But Friday nights at my mom's house, where you just come if you want to. And when I visited, I tried to plan to be here on Friday night, because that's when the party started. And she didn't, she really, and last year she didn't do anything. We did it, you know. She just came to the table and ate this, and come back to the chair, and we watched the Cardinals game or whatever was on. And I know, Julie, that that's going to be very difficult for you, because you were there every Friday night. But I want to tell you, God's grace will be sufficient for you too. It was all about one thing for her on Friday nights, and that was family. Well, Mom was also eulogized by her friends. My earliest memories go back to about age 5. I don't know if I'm normal or not, and don't tell me, but my earliest memories go back to about age 5, that I can really remember anything tangible. And we lived in Hornersville, Missouri, and I have very few memories of that place, except that Mom and Dad had a house full of friends in a really tiny house. You know, you don't remember until you go back and think, how did we live in that tiny house? I mean, that's back before tiny houses. And it was a tiny house. And they had 4 boys in that tiny house, but it filled with friends. That may have been when the Friday night tradition started. I don't know what night of the week it was. But I do remember the lemon icebox pie. And Mom putting us to bed before they enjoyed the lemon icebox pie. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember why did I never get any lemon icebox pie. But it was friends' night, and people came, and they played cards, and they visited. You know, that was the time when if you weren't in the field, that means they weren't in the field. So you just dropped by. You didn't have to call. You know, you couldn't text. They were going to be home because there was nowhere else to go in Hornersville, Missouri. I mean, she had a lot of friends. None, and I mean none, would have anything but high praise for Onita Kimbrough. I met somebody last night. I don't know if any of you other brothers did, but he was at the door and he said, "Was your dad Jim Kimbrough?" And I said, "I don't know." Because he put a lot of people in jail. And he said, "Well, I picked and chopped cotton for him in Hornersville, Missouri." I said, "That was him." He said, "One of the best men I've ever known." Of course, he was the man he was because of the woman that he married. Well, those that were true friends were fortunate to know her well. And most of her really, really close friends have already gone to be with the Lord. But a few remain, and some of you are here today. She was eulogized by her work. Verses 13 through 22 of this same chapter of Proverbs talks about a woman who was industrious and given to work. Now, don't read anything into this. This is about my mom, not about whether or not you should work. This is about my mom, and this is about the book of Proverbs, chapter 31. But let me tell you what I remember about my mom and her work ethic. She chopped cotton and watermelons and picked cotton. My earliest memories. Now, I've told people I was raised on a farm where we picked cotton. I'll have to confess, that's only partially true. I was pulled on the cotton sack while they picked cotton. But it makes for a good story, anyway. But I do remember that. I never really picked cotton. My cotton was never weighed, and I never made any money on it. But I was told my mom could outpick anybody. But she didn't like those memories. I told her one time, I said, "Mom, I saw a cotton scale at an auction and a cotton sack." And I said, "These things are going for a premium price." She said, "If you ever bring one of these into my house, you'll be in trouble. I don't ever want to see a cotton sack again." Well, I remember then when we moved to Roseland, Missouri, she grew a big garden. Not because she was so much a gardener, but because that's what we ate. And all of that time, she was taking care of us 4 boys while Dad worked on the riverboat on the Mississippi River. Now, somebody talked to me about this last night. We had 30 days of bliss, followed by 30 days of whatever you want to call it. Because she would say, "When your daddy gets home." So for 30 days, she wouldn't let us get away with a whole lot, but she kind of stored it up. And then grace kicked in, and she didn't tell him everything. But only later did I realize how hard she had to work, raising 4 boys 30 days by herself, and going to pick him up in Cairo, Illinois, and come back. What a work ethic. She put in several years when we moved to Poplar Bluff at the shoe factory, while Dad entered law enforcement, because the pay was so high that she needed some spending money. So, I remember his first law enforcement job. I'm being facetious, of course. I never knew that we didn't have any money. I didn't know that, because whatever we needed was provided. They didn't talk about finances around us. But I knew later that she worked at the shoe factory because of his great love for his job that took him away 24/7 and still raised us. Now, well, when I went to elementary school, I remember her going to beauty school. When I wrote this down, I thought, wow, she packed a lot of things in. She wanted to be a beautician. And she was a good one until she couldn't stand on her feet. Then she did a stint at the nursing home. That was my first job. She was my first boss. I was 14. She was running the kitchen, and I was washing the dishes and taking trays to clients. And I learned a lot just by having her as my boss. And then years in the home health field, followed by retirement at the diagnostic center. We always called her Dr. Kimbrough because she felt like, even before Google, when she learned to Google just a few months ago, I thought, oh my goodness, she's really going to be able to diagnose now. Because she always knew what to say or what to do or what we had, and sometimes she was right. Well, she was also eulogized by her God. I've heard that there's no greater argument for the Christian faith than that of a godly life. I recall a lot of things that my mother taught me because Dad was absent. He was, he had a work ethic too that was superior and expected that from us. But during the time that he was gone, my mom taught me a lot of things, but I remember when she taught me to pray. Her dad was gravely ill in, I think it was Barnes Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. We laid on her bed, I think it was 7 or 8, and she taught me every night how to pray because she was praying for him. Little did I know how bad he was. I was there when she got the call in the middle of the night, similar to me getting this call, Larry. And hearing her talk on the phone and hang it up and say something like, Grandpa's not in pain anymore. Let's pray and thank God for his blessings. Now, she taught me so much more. But as the spiritual leader, and Dad would have concurred, she was the spiritual leader in the family. He was a great man, but she was the one who took up the torch of being the spiritual leader. He would have concurred. And I've heard it said that one good mother is worth 100 school teachers, and an ounce of a mother is worth a pound of a preacher. And she was certainly that. In her latter days, and every time I went home, I mean, Trish knows this, I would say it's probably the last time I'll see her. To the point that I got to thinking, well, maybe it's not. She would assure me, not only that she was prepared, but in the last 2 times I saw her, she was not just prepared, she was ready. Now, she fought at that rehab hospital. I took a video of her doing the exercises. She sweated, and she would stand up, and she was determined to walk. But she knew and understood the sovereignty of God, that he's in control. He directs the affairs of all mankind. She knew that she had a set time, and whether anyone believes it or not, she was convinced it was soon. I said something about her 90th birthday, and she said, well, I don't think you should be planning on buying a cake. And, you know, sons don't want to hear that kind of stuff. I mean, she thought about death. I mean, I've told people this, and they might think it's morbid, but And I did at the time. In fact, it angered me, and I told them that. When my dad was living, they got their headstone made and put down and sent me a picture of it. I was so mad. I mean, they mailed me a picture of the headstone. They were probably in their 60s. So angry at them. But you know, that's the way it really should be. She cooperated with her doctors and nurses and worked so hard, but she knew, Larry, Tom, Bob, she knew that if she could not go back and live home alone, that she wanted to go to her eternal home. I so appreciate all that y'all have done for her, being there every day, sometimes literally. She did go home to her earthly home. She texted me and the boys, good night. She always used emojis, believe it or not. Had the Z's at 9:25, but at 2:30 with Larry holding her in her arms, she slept in eternity with the Lord. Philippians 1:21, I think, characterizes her very well. For me to live means living for Christ, and dying is even better. But if I live, I can do more things for Christ. So I really don't know which would be much better. I'm torn between the two desires. I want to go with Christ, which would be far better for me. But for your sakes, it's better that I continue to live. I mean, we wanted that. We so wanted her to continue to live. But I want to leave you with some things in which we can rejoice today. She can breathe without laboring. She would take the breathing treatments and have just a short reprieve from having to gasp, even with oxygen. She can walk without a limp. There are no more pains. She can see clearly. She can hear superiorly. Oh, well, I'm not so sure she could hear any better than she did. We all know she had supersonic hearing. But she's reunited with our dad and our grandfather and our father-in-law. And she's looking in the eyes of Jesus. Amen. And I know she's hearing the words, well done, my good and faithful servant. I just want to talk sincerely to every one of you. I don't know your hearts. But if there was any unfinished business for her, it would be that you would be able to hear, to sing, and for her to hear everyone say, with assurance, I will meet you in the morning. Can you say that? She was not shy about her faith in God. She knew her eternal destiny. What I think she longs to hear now is, I will meet you in the morning. Let's pray. Heavenly